Hello, beautiful community.
You know, it's pretty rare on this channel that I am not complaining about something that's wrong with the world.
A cage made out of glass. Constantly people...
And reflecting on the pretty bleak scenarios we have going on in the West.
Whiteness needs to end.
But today, I'm very thankful to be focusing on something good that's actually a legitimate concept. We can actually praise things in politics. Whether you love or hate Trump or are indifferent, one cannot deny that he has very much hit the ground running in his first few days as the new president of the United States.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
Trump has quickly signed several executive orders, whether it is declaring emergency at the southern border and beginning his mass deportation of illegal migrants and criminal migrants,
returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came,
putting countries like Colombia in their place when they refuse to take them back and he threatens them with tariffs. And of course, they've agreed to take them back.
I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't.
Perhaps this is what it looks like to have a leader of a country that actually has the political will to do the best for his people. He's also boldly decided to leave the
very corrupt
World Health Organization due to the mishandling of the
very corrupt
COVID-19 pandemic,
very corrupt World Health Organization,
and ditching net zero targets which are raising energy prices and cost of living, as well as inhibiting economic growth through revoking electrical vehicle targets or leaving the Paris Withdrawal Agreement to, guess what?
Drill, baby, drill.
One cannot argue that in just a few weeks, Trump is proving that he is someone who can get things done. And this time, he has surrounded himself by a group of loyal people who have the same interests of him at heart and are not going to try and thwart his plans through the deep state. With his massive mandate, so far, he is following through on his promises, which is beginning to look like the American people are actually getting what they voted for. And of my particular interest, and probably my audience too, he has signed several executive orders focusing on eliminating gender ideology at a government level. I have to say, guys, this is music to my ears. This is what I've been talking about on this channel for so long, what I've been advocating for, and it is really, really great to see progression in this space. I hope you agree. I've even seen Democrats and others who hate Trump praising these executive orders, which ultimately protect women, gay people, reality, because of whether left or right, the majority of people are recognizing the harms this ideology is causing society. Is this the beginning of the end of woke? Well, I don't know, but I know it's huge. However, you may see from this video title that I might have a couple of concerns about these executive orders. So let's break them down and I will share that with you today. Hello everyone, it is Jack. Welcome back to my channel, or if you are new, hello, welcome to the gang. Very glad to have you here. At this point, if you are still watching and not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button so you can help my channel reach as many people as possible. And also, while you're at it, hit the like button. You know you want to.
I want to sit with your pain and hurt.
Today, we are going to begin a discussion of 4 of Trump's executive orders surrounding gender ideology. This is in a 4-part mini-series you're going to see on my channel. And with that said, let's get into the first one. Defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government.
If you don't identify as male or female, you can turn this off right now.
Right. So in this executive order, the Trump administration includes across the country, ideologues who deny the biological reality of sex have increasingly used legal and other socially coercive means to permit men to self-identify as women and gain access to intimate single-sex spaces and activities designed for women, from women's domestic abuse shelters to women's workplace showers. This is wrong.
It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
Efforts to eradicate biological reality of sex fundamentally attack women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, and well-being. The erasure of sex in language and policy has a corrosive impact not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system.
So how do you kind of feel about Trump saying there are 2 genders yesterday?
If someone from the past could have peered into these executive orders, seeing us declare such simple truths, they would have been scratching their heads, but that is really where we're at.
There's only 2 genders recognized in America.
If you've still not yet, guys, make sure you like the video. And I just want to take this moment to say, if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways you can do that. I have a PayPal link in the description. You can also join the YouTube membership for access to the Jack Jewell Uncut episodes of my podcast. Or even better, join the Jack Jewell Uncut Substack for the same access, plus also written pieces and articles. That is my New Year's resolution. I am just about to release one, so hopefully you will see more and more from me. And with that said, let's get back into it. And this is a signal that Americans and Westerners are done with woke, done with pandering to bullying activists.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
Who want to create their own version of reality and impose it on other people.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
And something Piers Morgan has said, which has really stuck with me, is that this is actually the true version of fascism.
Everybody go back to default.
When you need other people to think the same as you, speak the same as you, have the same opinions as you, that is a fascistic regime, and that is not what we want in what is supposed to be the free world.
It is ma'am.
But everyone, the trans activists are angry.
What was your reaction in that moment? What did you do when you heard the president make the statement that he made?
I sat in my chair and didn't clap.
And they are not going down without a fight. And something else I'm enjoying here in our attempts to protect women is the reaction from the mainstream media.
What are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Who now see that they are slowly losing power on the conversation, including this interview with the Canadian leader of the Conservative Party.
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Personally, I am a man.
These are big steps because in the past decade, we have seen so many people be cancelled, lose their jobs, lose their friends and family over these ideas. But now they are becoming mainstream.
The only two genders recognized in the United States of America is male and female.
So hopefully more and more people will feel emboldened to actually say, yes, I've always thought this is nuts, and now I can actually say it, and there's nothing you guys can do about it.
I am a man.
Trump also comments on the concept of gender identity, which reflects a fully internal and subjective sense of self, disconnected from biological reality and sex, and existing on an infinite continuum that does not provide a meaningful basis for identification and cannot be recognized as a replacement for sex. As you know, woke is kind of a new religion for people, and gender ideology in particular mimics many qualities of a religion, as there is an ultimate faith in the gender identity which cannot be proven. And despite all the arguments,
why should I, as a female, be forced to get changed in front of a male?
Because but this is
the ideologues just cling on to these ideas.
Why should I, as a female, be forced to get undressed in front of a male?
Defying facts, science, and logic.
Why should I, as a female, be forced to get undressed in front of a biological male?
Right, but if somebody has a gender, for example...
And in a secular society and a separation of church and state, there is no place for that in government policy.
And why should I, as a biological female, be forced to share and get undressed in front of a biological male?
No. I will say trans men are men, trans women are women.
I am trans, yes. So I'm gender fluid. So that means that sometimes I feel like presenting female and sometimes I feel like presenting male or non-binary.
Yeah, so presenting female, presenting male, it's all based off stereotypes. And what is presenting non-binary? Androgynous? Those things do not make a woman or a man. They are just stereotypes derived from the sexes. You can be masculine, and that does not make you not a woman, which she is.
Gender and sex are different things. So gender, there's a huge spectrum. If you say like there's two sexes, like I suppose that has a little bit more validity with how sexes are defined right now. But still, there's a...
Right now. No, it's just a definition. It's a biological definition. Maybe in hundreds of millions of years, whatever, how long it takes, humans will evolve to be something else, and then we can have the conversation. But that is how it's defined right now. In the same way, your eye is defined as an organ, that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
A lot of gray area. So he's just not very knowledgeable about the stuff he's talking about.
Yeah. So I think probably he is, and he's also been advised by experts in this field and people who've been campaigning against this ideology for years, as well as actual evolutionary scientists. But yet this 19, 20-year-old non-binary girl seems to know more, right?
As like someone who's part of the LGBTQ plus community,
I bet she's just a straight girl.
Having Trump as the president again makes me feel insecure. It makes me feel threatened, and it also makes me concerned about the future of our country, and makes me concerned about my future because I'm directly affected by the policies that he's putting in place.
Now, I mentioned earlier that I do have some concerns over these executive orders. You're going to come and kill me in the comments for this, because while lots of us should be rejoicing...
Oh, it's all right, thanks. He's helping me. Day.
And it is very, very hard, I'll admit.
Oh yeah, he's just going to go and get me. Day.
Not to be super smug and sort of sit back with glee as we watch many of these trans activists squirm and kick and scream. I do acknowledge that a lot of people have been co-opted into these ideas. We have more nefarious people. We have a lot of autogynephiles behaving badly.
It is ma'am.
Abusing women. I have zero sympathy for them. We also have a lot of Munchausen's by proxy parents who've co-opted their kids into this, the woke liberal Karens.
When you came out to us and we as a family went on this journey together, we had no experience or understanding of what it meant to be trans.
And I have no sympathy for them either. However, I recognize there are a lot of people, particularly young people, who have been swept up by trans activism, swept up by the queer community, convinced that they are LGBTQIA+ when they are just a normal teenager experiencing puberty. They have been fed ideas by our institutions, by charities, by the community that they have to live in fear, that Trump is actually wanting to eradicate them, and ultimately their lives are at risk.
How could I have ever seen something like this coming? I mean, January 28th, 2025.
So seeing what's going on, I do appreciate that some of these people are really going to be panicking. The kind of lies and propaganda the queer community spreads, now they are sort of being vindicated and they are being told, see, we told you this would happen. But in reality, all we're doing is saying at a government level, we need to stick with reality and science. And we still live in a society where you guys are free to believe what you want. You can call yourself non-binary. You can believe this in your social circles, but we're not going to put this into law. And it also does not mean we're going to bring you off to extermination camps, okay?
And I've already known that I need to relocate from Florida to New York as a refuge for safety.
That is so far from the truth. It is sad to see potentially some people grappling with feeling unsafe and in fear, but tough love is a good approach, and it's something a lot of these people need to learn. It's something that we have really lost in parenting even, and for the younger generation. They are not being raised to have a thick skin for the world, to be able to deal with rejection. And in this case, we have pandered to people who have thrown tantrums,
yelling at her, hey, I hate those pronouns,
and demanded things from society that are not reality based.
I got misgendered at work on Wednesday. I immediately was like, no, I need to leave. So I left. I went home.
And now we're saying to them, sorry, you can't have everything you want. I understand your suffering. I understand you have these ideas and that your life may be difficult, but that is not our problem. You have to deal with you. And hopefully, ultimately, this will be a good lesson for a lot of those people. And they may look back one day and think, gosh, how did I ever think I was neither a man nor a woman? Which is just so ridiculous. It doesn't matter how many times I say it. It is ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. And we need to get back to reality, get back to competing as Western nations in this crazy world. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea are looking at us and laughing as we obsess with trying to define what biology is when it is one of the most simple, fundamental facts of the human experience.
Hi, my name is Karen and my pronouns are they, them, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in the states of Colorado and Washington.
Why are they always therapists? I swear there's so many non-binary therapists, which, they don't realize it's religious in belief, and they are kind of propagating that religion, because unless you go to a religious therapist intentionally, you're expecting a neutral, secular point of view, right? But these people are not doing that, and they don't even realize it.
I've been thinking a lot about the impacts of the executive order that is, attempting to say there's only two sexes. And
there are.
Really just actually feels like it was written by people who haven't passed 7th grade science.
I love that. And they always say things like this without explaining why. Oh, well, you obviously don't understand science. Okay, come on. I'm ready.
I've been hearing people kind of on a couple different sides of saying, I don't need the government to validate who I am. It doesn't matter to me. And I've heard some people processing their sadness around how this has felt really affirming to them and the potential loss of that and how that feels for them. It's okay. Your feelings are valid. Your identity is valid. And I hope you hear that you matter.
Can we make the word valid unpopular? I just think, what does it even mean? What does your identity is valid? I mean, your feelings about yourself are feelings and you're allowed to feel them. But to them, valid means other people should believe it. That's what they mean by valid. And you know, something in this actually gives me some hope because apparently there are some gender ideologues around there saying, I actually don't need the government to validate my identity. Good. That is what the majority of us have been asking for, is that you can believe what you want. If you're a man and you believe you're a woman, fine, but do not impose that belief on women and enter their spaces, enter their sports and demand things from them. And for that other person, it is not the responsibility of the government to affirm your feelings about yourself. I feel like I'm funny, whatever. Maybe you guys think so too, I hope so. But it's not up to the government to actually put into law, you know, this guy's funny. It's true. Even if I'm not, you know, I could not be. And this whole concept of affirmation is just going back to the point I made about raising kids to have zero backbone. We need to have confidence in ourselves. We need to bring back F you. I like myself. If you're not into this, you don't want to hire me, whatever, someone else will because I have things to offer in the world. That is really lost. And by God, we have to bring it back. It is traditionally more of a right-wing value to have individual responsibility, ambition, all that kind of stuff, instead of looking to the state to solve your problems. So this is another reason why I think we are seeing this shift to the right. I think we're going to see more and more institutions sort of gritting their teeth and reluctantly coming around to this. We're even seeing people like Joy Reid from MSNBC trying to find some sort of a middle ground.
And this is one thing that I will say. People that I know that are not MAGA, that are not Trumpy, the one issue where you can get them to agree with Donald Trump and Nancy Mace is they're very concerned about the sports issue. That they're saying that because, again, gender is how you sort of live your identity. Sex is chromosomes. They're two very different things. But there are people who say, well, if you are chromosomally, right, an XY, you just have an advantage in sports. And this is something that has become a thing.
The sports argument is a great one to bring up for someone who is captured by this ideology or doesn't understand it, because it is one of the fundamentally easy things to get on board with, unless you're one of those weirdos who thinks sex is socially constructed. It is very demonstrably clear that men have advantages over women in sports, which is all based on biology.
There are legitimate questions that have to be grappled with regard to how to balance respect, inclusion, and fairness in sports writ large. What we saw by the Republicans just last week in Congress, though, was a one-size-fits-all proposal that sought to micromanage athletics.
No, it is a one-size-fits-all, because if you have male and female categories, they are for males and females. There is no leeway there. If you want to create mixed sex categories, then do it. But otherwise, there's no point in having the categories if someone can just identify in and out how they please.
The legislation would facilitate adults asking young girls, trans or not, as young as 5 or 6, not only invasive questions, but potentially be able to inspect their bodies.
Some of them will go down with this sinking ship, spewing off these same narratives, such as this genital inspection one, of which no one arguing for separation of sexes has ever suggested, let's inspect people's genitals, although it is a trans activist talking point they always bring up. They need to understand and get it into their heads that the vast majority of times it is very easy to tell who is a man and who is a woman. In his executive order, Trump has to somehow clarify very simple words such as sex, woman, men, male, and female, which is a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large productive cell. Well, the postmodernists are still pushing this idea. As seen in this article by ABC News, Trump's definition of male male, female, criticized by medical and legal experts. Medical experts. They say that Trump's executive order rejects the reality of sexual and gender diversity and are concerned about the implications it will have for intersex, non-binary, and transgender Americans. Okay, tell me more. They challenged Trump's definition of female. Kellen E. Baker, who has clearly gone down this Anne Foster Sterling route of sex being a spectrum, which it's not, says this one is shockingly out of step with what we know from science. She noted that we're accustomed to thinking of sex as a fairly simple, binary, immutable thing, but the science tells us it's not that simple. Sex is not a singular, binary, immutable trait. It is in fact a complex cluster of multiple traits, some of which align with each other and some of which do not align with each other. Which is a stupid definition that academics decided to come up with when they decided that the fact there are two sexes just wasn't really interesting enough or good for their postmodernist theories. The fact of the matter is, when you have categories, the only and effective way to categorize them is in a distinct a way as possible. So you can say, well, there are some males with this hormonal imbalance, and there are some people with XX chromosomes but have this disorder of sexual development. There's no point in creating all of those extra categories, because when you siphon it down, every single one of these organisms fits into either large gametes or small gametes. And that is how we define sex. And then we've seen these absolutely ridiculous arguments that this journalist highlights in The Guardian. After his executive order on sex, is Trump legally the first female president? Now, she is no grace to reality and science herself, also favoring the sex is a continuing argument, but she refers to this article that went viral saying conception is the point where sperm and egg join, otherwise known as fertilization. Regardless of whether they have XX, XY, or an alternate chromosome pattern, all human fetuses' sex organs are identical at conception in that they have none. Fetuses subsequently develop in the same manner as each other regardless of their chromosomes until approximately 6 to 7 weeks after conception, at which point the Y chromosome typically expresses itself by inducing the development of testes. If the Y chromosome does not do this, the fetus will continue to develop female genitalia. And what they are conflating here that we probably all know by now are secondary and primary sex characteristics. Even from conception, XY or XX is baked into every single cell regardless of whether the expression has not started yet. Think of it as two balls of dough that look identical but have a very different composition, and once you bake them in the oven, have completely different textures. So I really find myself scratching my head with this stuff and think, have they not heard the arguments against all of this crap a million times, but they just cling on to these stupid things that are wasting our time, wasting everybody's time, and we have had enough. Trump also suggested these changes will require government-issued identification documents, including passports, visas, global entry cards, etc., accurately reflect the holder's sex as defined under Section 2 of this order. And this is not going to go down very well with the trans activists.
Please excuse my hair. I just woke up. Donald Trump was inaugurated at 12, and just a few minutes ago, he has now claimed that there will only be the male and female gender that will be recognized in America. This sets back everything that the trans community has been working for, and we have already not been recognized in this country for centuries. If we remember, gay marriage became legal 10 years ago. We had just earned the right to change our gender on our passports and IDs. Just because I want to identify as a man does not mean I am trying to hurt you.
You're not trying to hurt me, honey, but you're not a man. You're very clearly a woman, and that is not the job of the government to affirm that. You actually probably need some help and will be happier in yourself if you learn to cope with reality.
In these next 4 years, you are going to hear the most intense anti-trans propaganda you have ever heard in your entire life. And they're going to strew it in a way that sounds extremely convincing.
Propaganda meaning reality.
Because it will fearmonger. It will fearmonger everyone's insecurities. Please talk to your neighbors. Protect your trans community. Stay involved. And do not forget us, because history will try to erase us.
While it's pretty obvious that the crying in this video is fake, did you guys notice that? I still acknowledge my point from before, and that we are going to see a lot of people struggling and very upset about this until they accept the fact that they're not going to get their way. So heart goes out to her. Hope she finds peace.
In case you're wondering what it's like being transgender under this new administration, I just got my new passport in the mail, and they changed the gender to male because of Donald Trump. In case y'all want proof, there's my picture, very cunty. And yeah, there's that big ugly M. Yay!
So look, I do kind of feel bad for this person because we promise people things and then we just say, actually, no, we're going to take that away. But it is ultimately the right decision. I think government documentation should reflect reality and not just personal preference. Although I do acknowledge that going out into the world looking like this person does may raise a few eyebrows when, you know, this person gives people a passport ID. And it's very clearly quite confusing, right? You know, if you go to buy alcohol or whatever, and then someone sees, is this fake? Time will tell to see if we see issues arrive from these changes. Now, as expected, we are seeing some deluded gays and activists claiming that these changes are going to remove gay rights. They'll come for you next. The leopards will eat your face. We've all heard it before. This Instagrammer says, when Gays for Trump witnessed no more PrEP, gay marriage banned, circuit parties shut down, their liberal boyfriends dumped them, and none of us want to date them. Well, it might be the Republicans dumping you guys if they've not already, but this is hyperbolic. No one has ever said this. Trump has never said this. Stop fear-mongering. This just shows how confusing things have got when we have conflated being gay to being trans. They are all under one umbrella. And they don't need to be. They can be two separate things, which is why, just because we're focusing on biological reality, people are going nuts saying it's going to affect their rights when there's no sign that it is. But what's good to see is many more gays seem to be waking up to this and saying this has gone too far and are flirting with the idea of an LGB divorce from the T.
This thing with the pronouns and the gender stuff, even gay people at this point, a lot of gay people are pretty annoyed.
Even straight people I see talking about this do not seem to suggest that gay people are the same and they are causing the same issues, even though lots of gay people believe this stuff. But it is not fundamentally homosexuality which is causing the problem.
I wouldn't even call them the rainbow people, because like the gay people seem to have actually kind of started to distance themselves in the last few years from this stuff. They were like, hey, like, we're actually gay.
The executive order has also seen Trump clamp down on the prison system, saying that trans people must be housed in the prison according to their sex. And the prisoners are also not going to go down without a fight here, with this article coming out saying a trans inmate is suing Trump over executive order forcing her into men's prison and denying appropriate healthcare. Now, I don't know about the healthcare. I do not think that we should be funding genital surgeries by the taxpayer. Hormones and stuff, I wouldn't really have much of an issue with that. However, once again, it is not women's problem that you identify as a woman and you're being put into their prison. It's a you problem. Now, gay people, gay men in particular, are very vulnerable in male prisons and often get raped or beaten up, etc. But we don't let them into women's prisons. And while I think we should accommodate vulnerable people, these people making this transition should be helped and if possible accommodated and protected from harm. Again, it is not the opposite sex's responsibility for how you identify or how you see yourself. And this is just a sad truth about all of this. So that concludes part 1 of this series, guys. I have 3 more coming up for you to watch and enjoy. Let me know what you thought of this. Do you think it's important that we recognize reality at a government level? I'd be surprised if any of you said no. Let me know in the comments and give a guess what the next one is going to be. I'm very excited for it. And I hope to see you back in part 2. Bye.
If you need a safe space, let's have a few moments. I know. You're gonna be okay.
Yep.